I mean, he seems to do fine with it.
On the end, right?
They also can be brought into the service.
I don't think you could do it. You could do it if you were doing, say, a Yom Ha'atzmaut service or something.
Ooh,
You might possibly be able to do it as part of a wacky, non-normal service.
Right.
Must art have a purpose, Stephen?
I think it's not.
How about you?
For a Yom Ha'atzmaut or
No, it's not Yom HaShoah. No, maybe not.
Yom HaShoah. Maybe.
All right.
But not Yom HaShoah service.
Does everybody have everything that they need? That's an existential question.
It's not yours.
What page are you on?
I printed this up for you. I printed out.
You didn't give it to me.
I didn't give it to you.
It's very nice to have a bun in the oven. But leaving it in the oven is not the thing to do.
Vegetables
Not over Pesach, anyway.
Especially not on oyster. Yes, coming soon.
We made a lovely tray of Brussels sprouts and roasted potatoes and put it in the oven and forgot about it for 2 hours. And it was charcoal.
I had some amazing Brussels sprouts in New York. It seems to be a thing in New York. Everybody has Brussels sprouts.
All right. Welcome. We are chapter 9, Midrash 9, on page Kuf Lamed Aleph, page 131, halfway down. How are we doing? Welcome, Stephen. Would you like to read? I'll help out. Sorry, let me just rewind. What's the game that we are playing at the moment? The game that we are playing is that God created everything. V'hinei tov me'od. And the game that we've been playing, but we started off playing things about things being totally good. And now we're doing something slightly different, where we're using that vav of v'hinei tov me'od to suggest that there was an opposite of things, right? That there was the one thing that was created and the other thing. So the last one that we just did was tov me'od is the Yetzer HaTov, but since the biblical verse says v'hinei tov me'od, that suggested that God created both the Yetzer Tov and the Yetzer Hara, prompting the question, the Yetzer Hara tov me'od, is the evil inclination really totally good, resulting in the Midrash.
So could be hot as well, didn't you?
Right. And it's to do with the way that the vav doesn't just mean and, it also contains its opposite within it. We are dealing with the deep spiritual reality of the opposite of a thing sometimes being the same as the thing itself in a way which is...
You go far enough east, you go west.
Exactly. That is a deep truth about the nature of existence. All right.
That's the way we always justify our own Kodesh.
Your...
The Aaron Kodesh. Now.
Yeah.
It's the long way around.
Okay. So, welcome, Steve. Yeah.
On my right say, Hinei tov me'od, so gan Eden, v'hinei tov me'od, zo gehinam.
Pause. Right. So, right.
Okay. So, tov me'od, this is gan Eden, and Hinei tov me'od includes gehinam.
Good. And well read to read include, right? And we, it's just the next version of this, and we shouldn't be surprised to see all these things kind of kicking in. Yeah.
V'chi gehinam tov me'od.
One more word.
Atmacha. I have no idea what
Atmaha is the correct translation of Atmaha is
Why?
right? Is Gan Edam really good? Huh? Right? Or as so Gehenna. Yeah, right. We do anything. We did a bit about Gehenna, didn't we? A while ago. I mean, literally, it is a valley by the side of by the side of Jerusalem.
Yeah, I walked through it.
Right. And I walked through the valley of the shadow of death, right? And it was a place where rubbish was traditionally burnt. So it was always a kind of dark, sort of smoky kind of a place, and becomes the closest that we have to hell.
Not far from the
Not to mention the child sacrifice that went on there.
Right. It's Moloch and all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
Mashal, there's a story of a melech of a king, Shehayalav Parades, who has an orchard. V'hichnis L'Tzocho. Poalim. What's Poalim as in workers?
Workers. Yeah.
As in workers, oh.
Yeah.
Uvana Otsar Al Pitcho. They built whatever an Otsar.
Treasury. A treasury.
A treasury? In Gehilim?
No, so this is the mashal. This is the mashal, right? So there is a pardes, and workers are going to come in and work in the pardes, and there is a treasury just on the edge of the pardes.
Al Pitcho, what's its entrance? Omar Kol Mishahu Mitkasher. Everybody who went into the...
No, anyone who was kosher in their malacha in the pardes, anyone who was fitting in their work in the orchard.
Oh, Yikares L'Otzar was going to the treasury. The whole Misha Eno, Mitkasher, Mitkasher, Al Yikares L'Otzar.
All right. So here's the mashal. Right. There's the king builds a pardes, and on the outside of the pardes he puts a treasure. And anybody who is kosher in their work, anyone who behaves properly in their work, gets to go into the orchard, and anyone who isn't. So now let's do the nimshal.
Why would you go into the treasury though?
Well, hang on. So should we try and do the nimshal without reading it, right? So the king is God. The pardes is
Must be heaven.
No, it's be the world.
The world, right? And the poalim are
us,
right? And therefore the otsar is the thing on the edge of the world and God's dominion outside of the pardes, which we would probably call
Free shul membership.
Right? Well, kind of, if you want a better term, I suppose, sort of heaven. But the otsar, I mean, the official otsar, according to the Midrash, is going to be the Gan Eden, right? But here it means the reward of the world to come. Can you see that? Right? You go into the orchard. If you work hard,
you get your reward for it.
You go into the treasury. You get into the. I'm thinking of it like the safe, like behind the back of the store, right? You get to play with all the silver, and if you don't, then you don't get in, right? So that's the nimshal. So let's just see how they take us through the nimshal, the move from the mashal to the nimshal through this word kach, right?
Kol Mishahu Musagel the mitzvot. Anybody who is
segula.
Yes.
Slightly difficult to translate literally.
Treasure.
Right. If we talk about so when we say about God that God created an or that we are an segula, a treasured people, right? So anyone who is misagel b'mitzvot, right?
Your treasures are the mitzvot you built up. That's what they're saying, isn't it?
Well, I think anybody who treats the mitzvot as a treasure, right? As in, what's the traditional way of saying in Hebrew that someone is religious? Not dati, the other one.
Something mitzvot.
Yes, they are. What do you do to mitzvot?
Pursue.
No, if you say about someone there, they're observant. How do you?
Keep up the mitzvot.
Yes, they're shomer mitzvot, right. So mitzvot are something to be to shomer, right? Or here misagel. I mean, it's not a usual idiom. I mean, I've never seen this idiom before. I quite like it, right? But your reward for treating the mitzvot as treasures, for being shomer, for being a guardian of the mitzvot, for protecting them and treating them as if they are your best and your shiniest baubles, the reward for that is.
Muslim Masim Tovim, Harry Gan Eden.
Learns Gan Eden.
The whole Misha Eino Masagel the Mitzvot, so Masim Tovim, Harry Gan Eden. So it's the other side of the coin, really. It's the flip side of the.
Right. By the way, we have in no way explained why Gehinom is Tov Meod.
Right.
No.
Right. I mean, we've simply.
Unless it's as a deterrent.
Well, right, but we haven't seen. No, but actually, I mean, and actually, in is it this one or the next one? We will see the justification, right? The theodicy of punishment, right? I mean, I have to say, I was expecting to see, the Gehinom Tov Meod Et Maha. Yes, because you need Gehinom in order to think, but this doesn't do it at all. But just one other thing that's interesting for me, I mean, I'm not antinomial, but it's just very interesting, right? Does Midrash care about halacha? Not really. Right, this kind of midrash. I mean, the Sifrei and the Sifrei, completely. But here, it's very interesting. What do they want? What do they want you to do to get Gane done? Mitzvot. No.
No, not mitzvot.
No.
The mitzvot I say.
Mitzvot umasim tovim. And good deeds. It's just kind of interesting for me that what do you do to get Gane done? You do the mitzvah, yes, but Masim Tovim are also very important. I mean, I don't in any way, I'm not suggesting that's, it's not a Shabbatite tzvi. But I just want to kind of make that.
Because mitzvot includes Masim
But
Tovim.
when this Midrash was written, the mitzvot, the halacha hadn't been...
Yes, it is, yeah, the Gemara's done. I mean, I guess.
Where are we now, 3rd century-ish?
No, end of 5th, 6th.
We're further on.
Right. I mean, I'm just Rabbi Zera. Well, the Rabbi Zera is an older name. I mean, I'm just interested in this. In the playing up of Masim Tovim as a thing to do if you want to get Gan Eden. Right. This is really Bereshit Rabbah has a very strong ethical, moral. Sensibility, which I think is just seen here. I mean, by the way, there's no just in terms of the mashal. What does the mashal require us to do? Mit kasher b'malechet pardes. You might be thinking, anybody who keeps kosher gets to go to Gan Eden, right? Mit kasher. Anyone who is shomer kashrut goes to Gan Eden, right? That would be that very. That you get heaven because you are observant of the mitzvot. But this is not that. It's saying that mitkasher is mitzvot and masim tovim. It just struck me as just worth.
They're saying mitzvot and good deeds. So maybe they're incorporating halacha within.
Indeed. It's not rejecting the value of mitzvot. Right, it's absolutely not that, but I don't even think it's kind of this sort of liberal reform type theology that says what is only important is whether or not you're a good person. It's absolutely not saying that, but I just thought it was interesting.
But mitkasher is a very broad verb. I mean, a lot of things fall under it, not just keeping kasher.
Yeah, of course.
Observing the mitzvah is essential but not sufficient. You have to have something else as well.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Okay. Another one of these mitzvot. Yeah, Jason, thank you.
Amar Rabbi Shmuel bar Yitzchak, hine tov me'od, ze malach chaim, v'hine tov me'od, ze malach hamavet. Amar Rabbi Shmuel bar Yitzchak says, hine tov me'od means the angel of life, and the hine tov me'od, that's the angel of death.
I mean, again, can you feel how this chapter has come together, right? Can you feel them sitting around in the Bet Midrash, just riffing this kind of stuff? One of the things that you have to kind of do is that if there is anything in the universe which is not obviously good, you're going to have to justify it because God looked at Kol Asher Asa V'Hine Tov Me'od, right, and said it was, and Me'od we're translating not as very but as completely, So you just so Gehinom, Yetzirah, Malach HaMavet, this is all this kind of stuff is going to be in here.
Except we don't question that because it says V'chi Malach HaMavet Tov Me'od et Maha. So how is the Malach HaMavet good? Tov Me'od, very good, or completely good. Ella lemelech shasa seuda v'zimein et haorchim, and so a king who makes a meal and invites guests, v'hichnis lifnehem, and goes in.
Yeah, brings in, right? And so lehikanes is to bring,
to
right?
Bring in, yes, to bring to them, before them. Tamchui, which I'm not sure what it means.
Okay.
Malay, kol tuv.
A something which is full of all goodness.
Something which is full of all goodness. Go on.
Yeah.
A dish.
Yeah.
Dish.
Yeah, you know what? If you've got the English in front of you, it's well,
It's just-
tamchui is an important Pesach word.
Oh yes, of course. You come across it in Pesach. Where? I know that. I reckon.
Oh, it's in the 10 plagues.
No,
No, no, not the 10.
Oh, I reckon.
it's the opening Mishnah in the 10th parak of Pesachim that you have to sustain a poor person in Israel with enough money so they can have 4 cups of wine. Afilu minha.
Right, yeah.
Tamchui.
I
Even
don't
tamchui.
remember
So the tamchui is literally a bowl, right? There is no suggestion that this is the charity. I mean, that there is such a thing as the tamchui kitty. The gizbar, the treasury for extreme poverty, is called the tamchui. But here it's in its non-emotional meaning of the bowl. But hey, it's 2 weeks to Pesach.
But maybe the tamchui in the charitable sense means it's a tamchui where you can pick up a bowl.
No. The tamchui is a word for bowl. I mean, it's
No, that's what I know. That's what I'm saying. Maybe. Anyway, doesn't matter. Okay.
I mean, as in the collection plate, right? As in, to sort of borrow that kind of church idiom. It's the bowl, it's the plate. But here,
it means
this
just
is
the
just here. Here it means the bowl.
Got it. Kotu. Amar kol mi shehu ochel varech et hamelech yochal.
One word.
Vayerav lo.
V'yerav lo.
Vayerav lo.
2 more words. Sorry.
Amar. We say.
No. The king says.
The king says, right? Everyone who eats and benches.
Yep.
Or praises the king, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, okay, that's the mashal. Eats.
Gets to eat.
Vayerav lo.
Erev is in pleasure. It's fun for them.
Okay.
Anybody who eats and blesses. So anyone who eats while blessing the God, right? Like that's the thing.
Yeah. Eats with pleasure. Right. V'chol mi shehu ochel ve'eino mevarech et hamelech yutaz rosho v'sayif.
Saif. You know what a saif is? Sword. And I had to say I didn't look up utaz, and it probably means chop or cut off, right?
Yeah.
Anybody who doesn't, right? So if you bless God, is fine. If you don't, off with that. Exactly, off with his head. Interestingly, the line in Brachot, which I spent a couple of minutes just trying to dig out and just gave up. I can't remember exactly where it is. It does say in Masechah Brachot that anybody who doesn't make a blessing before and after they eat, it's as if they've stolen from God, right? It is a criminal act. So here let's do the Nimshal. The king obviously is God, right? And the Suda with the Tamchui Malay Kol Tuv is what?
The world.
Well, yeah. I think also we can have in mind the Gan Eden narrative. Right, the God put Adam in the garden and said to Adam,
Here it is. Boy.
Here it is, anything you like. All you have to do is behave appropriately, right? So that's the pre-halacha, right, version of it. The post-halacha is, here is all this food growing off the trees. All you need to do is shalach yadecha, put forth your hand and pluck an apple from the Barach, right? If you don't barach, you are chayav mita because you are a thief. You are worthy of the sin, worthy of the punishment of death. And here we are. Well, let's finish it. Let's do that. The kach, right?
Kach, kol mi shehu misagel mitzvot v'masim tovim. Anyone who treasures the mitzvot and good deeds. Hare malach chayim.
By the way, malach chayim is ya'achel v'ya'arev lo, right? The malach chayim, the angel of life, is you get to eat and be happy, right? I mean, which again, I mean, like these are not. It's not that Judaism is always Erev law, right? I mean, there is this sort of ascetic thing within Judaism about, I was just reading this morning this stuff about the ideal Hasidic male, pale, frail, it's not about fun, but here it is. It's like, you do what you should, you get fun as Malach Chaim.
וכל מי שאינו מסגל מצוות ומעשים טובים, הרי מלאך המוות.
Comes and jumps up.
Yeah,
his head.
the other side.
So, I mean, is this an answer to the question, Malach HaMavet Tov Me'od, Amar?
To a certain extent, it is.
Well, only if you're looking at the deterrent again, really, isn't it?
Or I mean, a deterrent or...
No, in a larger sense, what is the world then, and to what extent, when you defile it, are you defiling something like the feast of God, and therefore
It's justifiable. I mean, I think that's the issue, right? It's not quite that it's deterrent, but that, is the Malach HaMavet capable of being a force for good in the world? Yes, because this person has behaved so badly that therefore they deserve, I think that's the point, that their head should be chopped off. Ke'ilu.
we have not dealt with the death of the just perfectly.
No, we had a
To
good
my
crack
mind.
at it. We had a good crack at it a couple of
It was
weeks
a
ago.
quack.
Perfectly, you want to deal with
I
that?
want perfect.
We've got at the moment we're ticking through. I mean, it's interesting. I'm just trying. I don't know if I can make this case well enough. In my experience, what often happens when you hit these kinds of runs of a rule being established and then everybody kind of does their thing, very often the first one is really, really smart. You feel like someone's just kind of, they've pulled something together and put something together and you're like, oh, that's really good. And then everybody else, it's a bit, right, and it's a bit like, that when Apple bring out, the iPad, everybody else starts bringing out these kinds of, tablets, and none of them are quite as sleek, fast, elegant, they're all, because, and then they all start coming in from China, all this kind of stuff. But the last one tends to be pretty good. And the last one is the one that stops anybody else trying to do it again because, the mine has now been successfully excavated. And certainly this is the case. I mean, I think these are fine. They're perfectly interesting. But, we're just sort of slightly sort of ticking through them. The last one is good. So good, by the way, that it has been internally self-censored. and we're in deep waters, but I think we're still ticking. Where are we? Yeah, we're still ticking.
We're
Speaking of which, Dina, would you
Yeah, right. אמר רב השמואל הבא, הנה טוב מאוד. זו מידת הטוב, והנה טוב מאוד, זו מידת הפורענות.
punishment?
Just missed out a line.
Okay.
Could we?
I think you just missed out a line. Unless I fell asleep.
I
Line 1 to 3, didn't you?
No.
Did I do something
Then
wrong?
I nodded
No.
off.
You didn't.
Homer.
You didn't.
Homeotolotin, that's called.
Homer
Right?
nodded. He's allowed.
All right.
Right, so same as before. Hine tov me'od is midas hadov,
is-
but ve'hine tov me'od means that this also includes the
Punishment.
aspect of punishment, right? So this is talking about God's midah, yeah. The God.
Qualities?
Right.
Can we call them qualities, or what can we
Yeah.
call them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Attributes.
Attributes. That's nice. That's so Blakean. I like it. Right. Okay. וכי מידת הפורענות טובה היא מאוד.
Right, sadly missing the etmaha, but it's exactly
Yes,
right,
it is.
and it wouldn't surprise me if it was in there in some of the textual variants. Right, is the aspect of punishment
Is it good?
totally good? Right, yeah, right.
הטובה היא מאוד, אלא שוקר על הפורענות העיק להביאה.
Pause.
Okay. No,
rather.
or
How is it?
rather-
Let me explain to you how it's really good. Right, you've just suggested that it's not entirely good.
Maybe it's not.
Ella, it is good because
It lies?
shoked. It's like very careful, punctilious. I mean, it also means an almond tree, but to be shoked means to be very careful.
Okay. If somebody who's careful about punishment.
God, when God
What he
punishes, God is very shoked about how God punishes.
Mm-hmm.
And how to bring it.
and-
Hech lahavir, how to
bring it, how to exercise it. I
right
guess, is
now.
what I would say.
Let me do the bit that is. So yeah, no, sorry, I'm not going to do it from in here. The commentary in here is less good than the commentary in the Sonsino. The commentary on the Sonsino is terrific on this. Jared, will you just share it?
God took care that the temple should be destroyed and the Jews be deported to Babylon in summer and not in winter. For they would never have survived the rigours and hardships of Babylon during the winter.
Ah! So even in God's Paranut, God is Tov.
Yeah.
Right? The meter of Paranut is still Tov. Because, let's keep going.
But
Okay.
he was anxious how to make the punishment fit the wrongs committed, so that the victims, recognising this, would be led to repentance.
So again, it's not deterrence, but that when God punishes it punishes in such a way that we therefore repent. There's one more sentence, I think. Yeah, is that definitely somewhere else?
Others, he caused. This is an alternative version. He caused the temple to be explaining why it's good, I suppose. He caused the temple to be destroyed 2 years before its time, translating, he hastened to bring the punishment. For had he waited longer, Israel's sins would have condemned them to complete destruction.
And they would have been complete, and they wouldn't have been able to have done teshuva, and therefore it would have been over. I'm slightly reminded there about God bringing back the amount of time that the children of Israel spent in Egypt in Genesis, right?
Yeah.
That there was a sentence to spend a certain period of time in Egypt, which was brought in because we just couldn't have lasted all the way out to the end of it. Would have been completely gone. And also that justification for punishment that we talked about in the context of the Ben Sora Moreh. Excuse me, why do you kill a small child for being Sora Moreh? You kill them because knowing that they are going to go on to do terrible things, it's better for them to be killed now so that they get killed as kind of semi-innocent, not being killed with this sort of tremendous burden of all the bad things that they've done.
Must be an alternative solution.
I do not in any way...
That's sort of an intimacy of the Hiram and Nebuchadnezzar thing, you know. I mean,
Yeah, there's
sort of
Nebuchadnezzar in there.
I mean, it just it's a stretch.
It's the opposite of the Ishmael story from the first day of Rosh Hashanah, with all the commentators saying
And he's been
the
Mesachek.
reason why he was saved is because it's from where he was then, and where he was then wasn't as it was.
Oh, very good.
It's the exact opposite.
Very, very good, right? God saw him where he was,
Where he
right?
was,
in that,
yeah.
that moment. Right, and there is a kind of, I suppose there is a, this is a
I like
Kantian...
that one better.
I mean, right.
Don't we
so,
all?
so, I mean, this is the argument between Kant and Bentham, right? Jeremy Bentham, the utilitarian argument, which is, is punishment justifiable because the overall amount of good and bad that happens as a result of it is tilted on the side of better if you, for example, don't let any Muslims into your country, right? I mean, if you go Trumpian on this, I mean, whether or not it's actually true is a whole other thing. But what we are encouraged to understand by Trump is that if only we were to stop all them Muslims and all them Mexicans from coming into our country, we wouldn't have any of the drugs, crime, or the terrorism that we now have. The Benthium response to that is okay, fine, right? Because it is such abuse to those non-violent Muslims, non-violent Mexicans is justified by the overall amount of good that this kind of draconian measure would take. I'm not saying I would agree with that. That's the Benthian position. The Kantian position is you can't treat an individual human being as a means to anything other than their own ends,
Right.
and that therefore you have to treat people kashehu sham in that place, and if you believe in the possibility of change and all of this kind of stuff, to which the response is, well, I know how they're going to work out. And that's therefore in some ways we read this and it does feel very outdated, but we're in the midst of this kind of argument.
Of course, in those times, it was a very
This is the Benthium.
difficult time in the world.
This is
rather a Benthium argument. Yeah.
This was written at a time when the Roman Empire was falling apart and Christianity was rising. And sociological at that
We're gonna meet the Romans shortly.
Oh, how nice.
I feel it's a bit like Asterix, right? You read the first few pages of Asterix, and you know the Romans are coming. It's
Wait. Okay.
great.
Amar Rabbi Simon.
Yeah.
Somebody else want to? I'll keep going.
Okay.
Amar Rabbi Simon b'shem Rabbi Shimon bar Abba. Kol hamidot batlu. Midah keneged midah. All of the
This is going to take a while. It's going to take. This is rather
all of
difficult to
the- all
translate.
of the
Just do
qualities
two more words.
Are void and null. One midah against the other midah.
You need two more words. Sorry.
Lo batula.
Right. Kol hamidot batlu, midah keneged midah lo
Lo.
batale.
Okay.
I just let me just
Right.
tell you what's going on here because I don't know how you're
Right.
supposed to work it out from that particular language. All earthly decrees of the earthly bet din, specifically death penalty punishments, are batel over the time of the Churban Bayit. Now, I mean, I had a little dig around. Sorry, let me just rewind to that bit that Gerald was just reading. It's unbelievably interesting, right? Justifying the punishment of the destruction of the temple in those kinds of ways, right? I mean, I love that idea that it's done in the summer and not in the winter. In God's punishment, God is kind. Sorry, in my mind is just going off that as God kicks Adam and Eve out the Garden of Eden, He dresses them in clothes to protect them in the wilderness, right? So but just the way in which the destruction of the temple is the disaster of that's there in their minds, right? The Churban Bayit is absolutely catastrophic, and one of the things that happened is that after the destruction of the temple, you couldn't do death penalty cases because you couldn't judge people in the temple. Specific room in the temple precinct the Sanhedrin had to sit in order to do those kinds of things. So death penalty pieces stopped. So this is actually true, right? That with the destruction of the temple, the human death penalties were batel, but the midah keneged midah, which God does, the way that God is capable of doing these extraordinary punishments that really kind of speak to the error of your ways. The big classic one is for Pharaoh, right? The Pharaoh drowned the boys in the Nile, so therefore the first plague is the plague of blood, and the last, and I don't mean here the last of the 10. The last of the 10 is that he loses his son. The last of the plagues is as it were, the destruction of the army in the Yam Suf, right? So it's all this kind of water-based midah keneged midah kind of stuff. But the things that God does is not changed by the destruction of Churban, right? Because God is capable of factoring in the Churban Bayit, not for various reasons. Gerald, you'll be pleased to know. I'll tell you what the reason is. And a friend of mine who's applying for a job as a rabbi wants to ask me about his contractual negotiations. So I said I can send you my contract, and it says in my contract that if I get unfairly dismissed from my job, and that costs money in terms of the default on the mortgage payment, then the Shiur will pay the default on the mortgage payment unless a court ruling on unfair dismissal has already taken that into account in the award in which they make. Right? God has already taken into account the destruction of the Churban, so therefore God's midah keneged midah will still play. So it's that kind of stuff, right? All of this, and you can see, by the way, this huge run down the Midrash on that the far outside of the page. It's just here. It just turns up all over the place. It's in Sanhedrin. It's in the Darim. It's in Shmot Rabbah. It's in Midbar Rabbah. It's in Eicha Rabbah, and it's in Tanchuma. In two places in Tanchuma. There are just loads of different versions of this, and we've got kind of half of it. And a sentence like, what happens when you hit a sentence like, Kol hamidot batlu midah keneged midah lo vatla. You're not supposed to be able to understand that based on what's there on the page. It's to do with it being copied out at 25 different places, re-edited, re-redacted, and that's what it means. Go on, take it if you don't finish this one.
So I'll keep going. Okay, where were we? Rabbi Huna b'shem Rabbi Yosef mit hilat briato של העולם, צפה הקדוש ברוך הוא שבמידה שאדם מודד, בה מודדין לא...
Pause.
מודדין, okay. Now, this is a bit beyond me. Help will be happily accepted.
All right.
Rabbi Hunan, the name of Rabbi Yosef,
At the beginning.
At the beginning of the Braita.
No, of the Bereshit bara Elokim et Shema. In the beginning of the
creation
code of
the world.
Hartzofim.
Hakadosh Baruch Hu.
Harasofim, Mount
Scopius. Looked, I guess.
Good.
Saw
yeah.
something, I don't know.
God saw
that b'midah sha'adam moded. That
by the measure that a person does, so shall they be rewarded. Right? That's completely failing to capture any of the poetry in that. Right? B'midah sha'adam moded ba modedin lo. What goes around comes around. The things that you put out are the things that you get back, and that's a very, very common idea within Judaism. That the classic one is Pharaoh, but you can see it all over the place.
But the Mishnah really is talking about the reward, or in every case in the next world, not in this world.
No, it's not. I think it's prepared to offer that. Yeah, in case of need, but in fact, generally they would go much more in this world. If the
and they must be aware that it.
I mean, so Yosef Mechoved Shabbos, right? So the guy's told that all his treasure is going to end up in being owned by Yosef Mechoved Shabbos, who's really good on getting ready for Shabbos. So he sells all his treasury, buys a jewel, puts the jewel under his turban. The turban gets blown away by the wind. It gets swallowed by a fish. They catch the fish. It's only 30 minutes before Shabbos. But in Yosef HaKavod Shabbos, will always buy the best fish in the market, even if it's not enough time to cook it before Shabbos, which of course means that you lose the fish because you can't. It's not going to last. So he buys this fish even though it's completely useless to him. What happens? Cuts it open. Inside is the jewel, right? Because he's always honouring Shabbos, so too Shabbos will honour him, right? That's Mida Keneged Mida, as is classically understood. B'midah she'adam moded, ba modedin lo. That's that kind. I mean, it must appear 100 times in the Talmud as an idea.
Wow.
In Midrash.
Shakespeare wrote a play about it.
Indeed.
Except for measure.
Indeed. I wonder what that intertext meant for him. I mean, it might be Greek, of course, but it's certainly very much at play.
That's sort of the end of it.
No. Now here comes. Yeah, this is the very stuff you've been wanting the Midrash to do.
Lo lefichach amru.
No, sorry, ba modedin lo.
Lo. Okay. So he in that he will. Have to put it. I can't put it in the passage.
No.
In that way, he will be rewarded.
That'll do.
Is that okay? Yeah. All right. Lefikach amru hachamim v'hina tov meod zo midah tova. Okay, and thus the hachamim say v'hina tov meod. It means that this, whatever we're going to call midah, is good.
Right. So let me pass this out. We're going to do a little journey into the proper edition of this. Right, because it's still this is not the grammar of this doesn't quite work, right? Therefore, the wise say, "Hine tov meod, zo midah tova." The thing which is very good is the midah which is good. Is the good midah which is tautologous and unsatisfactory.
Yes, it is indeed.
Okay, the good news is. So what page are we on?
We're on
73. All right. So, line.
I have your underlined copy, I think.
Yeah, fine. It's alright, I got it now. So it's line 5, it's line 8, it's the line which has Yud Bet on the outside.
Okay.
Can you see it? But it's actually, it's the big, right?
Starts right before that.
Yeah, so let's just show, so if you go up to line 8, Lefichach Amru. Yeah, can you see where we are? Right, so Lefichach Amar. So right, Hakatuv. So let me just translate this. Therefore, the verse says Vehine Tov Meod. This is now to be understood not as Midah Tovah, but Hine Tov Midah.
So it is good.
It is good to be in the world of Midah Keneged Midah, right? Of B'midah she'adam moded kach modedin lo, right? That what is good is that what goes around comes around. It's very right. It's a different version of goodness of what good means. Good doesn't mean happy. Good means justifiably, right? You know, can you say that God is omnibeneficent if a person gets punished in some particular way? Yes, because they must have done something, the midah of which justified the midah of response. We have therefore preserved goodness. Now we haven't raised the stakes on this, right? I mean, I'm preparing Kiddushin for some Bechorot, and I've just done the bit about the small child told by their father to go and send the bird away. You know, both of these mitzvot are things for which you're promised length of days, and the kid falls off falls down and dies. You know, like we haven't upped the stakes, but what we've got here is that even when a punishment is as bad a punishment as the destruction of the temple, as ripped as that is for within the Jewish soul, God demonstrates God's goodness by being shaked in how that is done, and doing it in such a way that it allows for a possibility of teshuva and healing after.
Still assumes that you did something wrong that justifies the punishment.
It does indeed.
Yeah, that's the bit.
It does
Yeah,
indeed.
that's where we've not gotten off that sufficiently.
Well, it's not talking about the
If
behavior.
if we don't know ourselves what it is. We might not be aware ourselves what it is that justifies His mercy.
It's always
Hang on just one second. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that brings back to my mind. I remember when we were growing up, they said ancient Israeli saying when kids misbehave and they are punished, they said, as you lay your bed, so shall you lie on it.
Right.
Yeah. Or the kind of.
I'm not sure. I have to say, I'm not sure that's an ancient Israelite saying. But yeah,
Tracy Ehrman, I think.
Yeah.
What did you say?
Tracy Ehrman, she's an artist.
Yeah, she never made her bed.
No, never done.
Measurement, also the hand is involved because ancient Israel again, we measure according to the Torah and then the Tanakh. You have to measure with your hand. At times we do this, we do that.
Yes, I mean the amidah is a stick.
You bring and then give you the measure to fit the
bowl.
The bowl.
Right.
That's all.
Thank you. Yeah, so I mean, on the one hand, we can be stern on Midrash's failure to sort of deal with this kind of stuff, but you know, Rambam, who is trying to be who tries to be consistent and round out a fully thought through philosophical program, you know, runs into difficulty. You know, which he is perhaps capable of saving by dint of making it so complicated to understand that nobody's capable of accusing him of heresy. You know, you just can't get successfully in and out of these waters. And personally, I don't mind these. You know, I've called these kind of raids on truth. You know, it's like it's clearly not the absolute solution to the problem of suffering in the world.
No.
But it does seem to me that
it's an honest attempt at trying to find something that you can make sense of.
You can hang your coat on.
Well, but it doesn't always work out.
you see, it's not. It's midrash. It's not philosophy, right? I mean, I think like sometimes I think you can say to somebody, you can never say this to somebody, but sometimes a person might reflect on something that has happened to them and feel that it arises from something that they have done in their life, right? The person who says, this is, that's Jobian's friends, right? You don't want to be a Jobian friend. But that sometimes a person, certainly in my own experience, I have reflected on things that I have at that moment perceived as being unfair and found their justification, either in terms of where it leads me or in terms of the value of the thing itself or this, that and the other. And these are, I think, this is the journey of struggle with this. I mean, one of the things that I like to think about in terms of how to deal with things that cause pain and suffering, emotional, existential pain and suffering, is that you kind of need an armory. You need a quiver of different things. Some of which don't make the problem go away. Sometimes you can get away with something like this. It doesn't worry me that this is perhaps a little shallow. I think that it's certainly it's worth thinking about, right? Maybe I am responsible for the things that happen to me.
Well, what's interesting is the attempt to build this catalog. I mean, we started a while back, and we've sort of accumulated a catalog. It's
of Gehinnom and the Yetzer Hara and the Midah Poraniyot.
Right. I mean, it's the attempt and somehow to build this catalog, and at each step, feeling as if the catalog were insufficient for the troubles that the world is in. And it's that effort. It's that sort of platonic effort of saying it's not the truth factor; it's the process of the mind getting there.
But in a way, it's a very dangerous idea, because you can say that, oh, he's suffering because something he did. They're dying in whichever it is. Some
Yemen.
Children dying.
Yeah.
It's a dangerous.
I do not didisagree with that at all.
Yeah, I think it is.
But
it's the one nugget that just you can't.
Just going off, you just said before about Maimonides, Rambam. Did he comment on Midrash at all? Did he ever?
I don't know how to answer that. There are a couple of extended midrashim in Moreh Nevuchim, which have relationship to Midrashim in Bereshit Rabbah in particular. In general, he wasn't very interested in Midrash. Certainly not a Gadic Midrash. And in the Mishnah Torah, which is the law code, none of it appears. I have to say, I haven't studied Rambam's commentary on the Mishnah to know what he does when there are these kinds of midrashim that pop up in the Mishnah, which is not that frequent, but Mishnah Sukkah would be a good place to look, I suspect. I think. Yes, sorry, hang on, wait a second. Well, yes, the very opening of the Guide to Perplexed, he actually renders the Torah itself as very clearly as a midrash, right? He says that when the Torah itself says that God has an outstretched arm, it doesn't mean that God has an outstretched arm. It means that there is an idea that outstretched arm is supposed to kind of fire off in your mind. But chas v'chalila, that you should actually think that God has an outstretched arm. What he clearly has an ability to handle midrashic playfulness. But most of what happens in the Moreh Nevuchim, at the beginning of the Moreh Nevuchim, where he does this systematically for page after page after page after page, he's actually doing it to the Torah Shebechtav, to the written Torah itself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Let's keep going. Number 12. Jenny, want to go?
רבנון אמרי לה, בשם רבי הנינא ואידי ורבי פנחס ורבי הלקיה.
Pause. So the rabbis say it. In other words, the rabbis take this thing that we've been playing for a while, and the rabbis' version of it is the one that they got from these three guys, Rabbi Chanina, Rabbi Idi, and Rabbi Pinchas.
Pinchas
And Chelkia.
And Hilchia. Who Ma'odi, who Adam...
No, so that's not a yud.
Sorry.
Who Ma'od...
Sorry, yeah. hu ma'od, hu adam.
Oh, wow.
hu adam. Hinun otiot the dain.
Yep.
Hinun otiot. The Dain,
right?
The Dain.
You can just see the if you look down in the commentary below, they've translated that Aramaic back into Hebrew for you. Hinun elu otiot Dain shel zeh, right? These letters from this one, mem, aleph, dalad, are these letters of this one, aleph, dalad, mem. Hine tov me'od, hine tov adam. Now, do we want to? Let me just finish this. Well, let's just finish it, and then we'll have a go at it.
Hada hu dichtiv vayar el Elohim et kol asher asa v'hine tov me'od ze adam.
Now, I think what we have done now, because we've done all this heavy lifting about the Vav of the Vehine, when we come to appreciate the human being, and the question, right, what's the question that you expect? You know, Adam Tov Me'od Maha. We are now, as it were, at religious peace with the non-explicitly total goodness of the human being. We are at peace in our own fallibility and our own Masim Tovim and not doing Masim Tovim, our own Yetzer HaTov and our own Yetzer Hara, and that the way in which we are in ourselves entirely good, but within that a roiling mass of counter-bashing stuff is somehow acceptable and justified. And I think that's very, very smart big Midrash, right? Midrash that spans over, I don't know how many of these you've done now, 7 or 8 of these things.
It's going on.
You know, all this justification of God, because God has to be good, right? You know, any Midrash that opens up trying to work out whether or not God has been good or not, unless it's one of the really, really interesting ones, is going to result in God being good. But now all of a sudden, all of that now becomes us. Maybe that's not somewhat surprising, because after all, we are created in the image of God. So that if God is a mixture of a midat, the malach chaim and the malach hamavet, and the midah hatov and the midah haporanut, like all these kinds of things, we bear them too.
Do you think this Midrash is rather trying to it's not really trying to explain about God, it's trying to explain about the human being?
Isn't that always going to be the case? I mean, you know, I just don't know how you can disentangle one from the other, because the most we will ever know about God will have to be articulated in human terms. I can't escape my subjectivity to pass objective comment on God.
Right.
That's a goodie. It doesn't look like a goodie. It only becomes a goodie when you've done all the stuff that's come before.
Yeah.
And the next one's terrific. Who wants to do the next one? Shall I do it?
Lakish again, right?
I'll do it.
Yeah, you do.
Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, Hine tov me'od, zo malchut shamayim. That's the heavenly kingdom. But since the verse says, Va hine tov me'od, zo malchut haromayim. That is the kingdom of the Romans. Now, I'm slightly confused by that. By what translation have you got for Romayim, Gerald?
Earthly kingdom.
Right? Now, that works as the Hendiades, heavenly kingdoms, earthly kingdoms. The only problem is that Resh, Vav, Mem, Yud means Roman, right? You know?
But maybe it means who's ruling it.
Right. That's at this point, I mean, Stephen, I think you pitched us slightly too far in history, pulling us back a little in history. Earthly power means Rome. V'chi malchut Romayim tov me'od at maha. Are the Romans all good? Huh? right? I mean, you can feel that this is very serious. 1 second, please. Ele shehitov at dikayon shel briot. Rather, the Romans are good because they protect the they protect the impoverished. The Romans, Yamach Shemam, curse them, those ratted Romans. They at least had a system of justice. I just don't know enough about the reality of this to pass comment on it, and in fact it's kind of irrelevant. But what they're saying is that the Roman civilization, even though they hated the Jews,
they had a system of
justice.
I'm not sure the Romans did hate the Jews.
Oh, they didn't. They just read the right. You read Josephus,
only
so you read
reactively to our behaviour.
Fine. Right. I mean, yeah. So, I mean, but right.
That's enough.
Well, I mean,
behaviour was often obnoxious.
So
too much.
Yeah. You've been reading too much Josephus. Right. So. It's saying that and there's a pekavot that you have to pray for the memshalah, right? Because if not, people would
tear themselves apart.
And Shnema, the proof text for this is Anochi asiti eretz va'adam aleh havarati. I made the earth and put man upon the earth. I made the earth with its earthly manifestation of sorry, I'm just giving myself away a little. I'm sorry, I'm trying to hold. So I'm trying to go into this without giving away it was the butler. Gerald knows because he's sitting there looking at the English. I am the one. I made the earth and put man into it. In other words, the fact that there are earthly powers is God's doing. God says, I didn't want to run the system, so I put human beings down there to run the system. So even if you don't like Theresa May, Donald Trump, even if you don't like your rulers,
there is a system of justice, sort of.
Yeah, you can't be a kind of an anarchist because you have to believe in the kind of the there is a decency and that there is a what's the thing that the Queen feels? That she feels that God wants her to be the queen. What's
divine right.
I'm not sure it's quite as strong as that. There's another thing, being manifest destiny or something. I can't remember. There's one of these kinds
Monroe.
That's who?
That's James Monroe.
Oh, okay. I've forgotten what the phrase is, but there's some phrase that they feel that they have to be the ruler because that's somehow fated. Because if it wasn't fated, they wouldn't be the ruler, right? Which is a perfectly acceptable form of just.
Oh, go ahead. That's in the Christian Bible. When the Apostle Paul wrote to the Corinthians or the Romans, so he told them, he said, wherever they settle, they should respect the law of the land and they should respect the rulers because it's God who puts them there to punish the bad people.
Okay, well, I think that's exactly what's going on.
I come from a red diaper family. I find this to be rather difficult to swallow.
Right.
But in our case,
sorry, just 1 second, Dina. Yeah, sorry.
So in our case, when our ancestors settled the land of promise, and Samuel's children misbehaved, they asked for a kid, and God said, so you've rejected me as your kid. Right. But ours is different from the Christians.
As indeed is the communist analysis. So what you're saying?
Right. Well, I am saying that this is, from my point of view, from where I come from, altogether too quietist.
Right, and the power must be critiqued.
Yeah.
Yes, and I mean, and actually, one of the things that I love about Midrash, I mean, I was just catching Ian Hislop kind of talking about the value of satire in society, and in some ways, Midrash is that, right? Midrash is satirical, and it will expose your hypocrisies and so on. But here Midrash is for once, your term quietist. Right, the Marxian term would be, the response is you stir up them proletariat so that they don't accept that the mere fact that someone is in power today means that that's somehow justifiable. All right, so the other thing that
so in Pirkei Avot, when we say prayer for we pray for the ruling. Did they have Rome in mind at that time? Is that what they had in mind, or
yes,
yeah,
yes, even Rome.
Yes, because they were under the Romans before the
But Rome was
departed and
Probably
they
still
became
was one of the
Anglican.
Noahide.
Yeah, so
Exactly,
Rome was
exactly,
ruling
exactly.
the entire world at the time. Yeah, before they said we don't want you anymore, we want to be Anglicans, and then Presbyterians, and then the Methodists also came out of Anglicanism.
Later.
And the
So
Valentine and
here's what's really going on, right? Which lifts this from being a politically perhaps troubling, but otherwise acceptable midrash into, I think, something really quite smart, right? So I'm back in my handout in my
Okay.
in here, right?
Yeah.
V'hinei, so I'm on the penultimate line. Can you see where it says Yud Gimel at the end of the line?
Yes.
V'hinei tov me'od ze malchut haaretz. Right, so we've got the Romaim in here, we've got haaretz in here, and I'm now very confused. So I'm going to look down at the textual variants, and here I am down here, third line up. V'hinei tov Adam.
Yes.
Ze.
Adam.
No, can you repoint that?
Ze Admah.
Edom.
Edom.
Ah, Hine Tov Me'od. The previous midrash we took. What was that? Dedain otiot. Hinu notiot dedain. Hine otiot dedain. Right. Instead of reworking the letters Mem Aleph Daled as Adam, now we're reworking the letters as Edom, translated as Rome, right? The Edomites become completely associated with Rome, and now it's a brilliant midrash. Now it's a brilliant midrash. I am absolutely convinced that the correct version of this midrash is Edom. But because when you wrote that out without the dots, it looked like you were just repeating the thing from before, so they just read it as Adam and they didn't know what to do with it. They talked about Malchut Haaretz. At some point, I don't know where this version of the Romaim comes from, because actually this doesn't seem to be attested in any of the manuscript variants. I think it's been sort of put in here because they kind of know that it's about Rome, but it could not be. I think it's absolutely clear that this is a midrash about Hinei Tov Edom. Now that is a very brave, mighty thing to chew upon.
What is it?
The next bit is easy. Can I just do it, and then we have completed the chapter. Vahira vahivoke yom hashishi. We are moving on to our next lectionary verse. Amar Rabbi Yudan zo sha yetera shemosfim mechol al kodesh. Because it says yom hashishi, because it says the sixth day, as opposed to Yom Sheni, Yom Shlishi, Yom Revi, Yom Chamishi, Yom Ha-Shishi. This tells you that you diminish the Shishi. The Shishi gets slightly diminished because Shabbat is coming in and we need a little bit of that extra time. So you mosifim mechol, you take away from the sacred times for the sake of the holy time. Okay. This is the 18 minutes before sunrise that you light, should you bring in Shabbat. Uva nig rama malachet olam, and this is the kind of the conclusion of the making of the world, the work of the world. Al kain kativ hashishi. And because it was the sixth day that it was all finished. Amar Rabbi Simon bar Matera ad kan monim le minyano shel olam. Up until this point, we count the counting of the world. Mikan ve'elach monim le minyanache. From here on, we count separately. This is an exceedingly interesting idea for those people who know that the world is 3.4 billion years old and wonder why on earth we've got 5,777 from. Here's your answer. The first 6 days up to Shabbos is a minyan shel olam. It's a different way of counting. Now let's start counting in the way that you and I would understand counting. You've got to say, interesting, right? Jews have absolutely no reason to be disturbed by fossils. But I might say more about that another time.
There was a limud session on calculating